Today, Tom and Kenneth take up the subject of reviving trust in society.
For that review of the fundamentals of the Circle of Gumption and the pillars, but I really wanted to ask you to introduce that, so then turn to how does that relate to trust?
Trust. Oh, man. Excellent question. And trust is where we place confidence in someone or something. We go on an airplane and we trust the pilot to know where he's going. So trust is we believe people are going to do the right thing and they're going to be the right person. We're going to have faith in them. And it's an assured reliance on the character and ability and the strength of other people, the strength of someone that we're looking for to have that trust. And I came up with, if we're talking about trust at a very high level, is care for other people. You can trust people when you show them that you care, and vice versa. We've always talked about effective communication in our interaction. We talk about character of people, their competence and their consistency. So all that stuff that starts with a C, that increases the trust level. And trust, I think we did a series on relationships, and trust is so important in relationships. People that are loyal and they trust to you. And relationships, of course, is one of the most valuable things that we can have, and we must have trust to have a high level. The problem is that in today's culture, we actually live with a high degree of what I'm calling skepticism. Just real, people don't trust. They have no benefit of the doubt.
Now, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to stop you there because I have some insight into your professional background.
Okay.
And in your professional background, skepticism is a key component of what you would have done as either a CPA or an auditor. So I'd like to maybe ask you to explore how can you have professional skepticism yet develop a trust relationship in the business context?
I always, in my accounting career, I always felt, and I actually said this openly, is that you really can't make a good deal with a bad person. So I think that the quality of the people that come in, and we always used to vet those people. We want to know the background of the chief financial officer, the CEO. And so we would have conversations with them. We'd have a relationship with them. We want to know what is their goal for the company, what is their achievements that they've had in the past. So I think that there might be a little stronger word that I would use, is that we use a great deal of due diligence. And we're trained, of course, to look for those things that would be a red flag. But being skeptical is, I'm just saying that today, people that have a lack of trust, where there is mistrust, be skeptical. You hit right on the head. We want you to be skeptical to a certain part. But today, and maybe it's caused from what we've been through in the last couple of years, but I've talked to people, they don't trust the government. They don't even trust the educational system. Things that we thought in the past were safe and things that we could do, they're no longer safe. I remember I used to love to go to the Saturday matinee and sit in the movie theater. It was so comfortable and I felt very secure. But with the things that have been happening, even the church is being challenged. Doctors are being challenged. So the lack of trust is, I think it's significant today. But that's a good word, skeptical. I think that with due diligence and searching to see if there's problems, and you and I look at the cycle of the internal control and what is the compliance, we want to know, and we use statistical sampling and everything to get to the bottom line there. But
maybe we could do an entire episode on trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Okay. Yeah.
But
Trust but verify. That's good. Okay.
somebody said that once
Yeah.
a long time ago. But you're absolutely right. We are at a point in our country where trust is at it's maybe not all-time low, but a very low point. How can we as individuals start to build that back? How do people like you and I start that process of rebuilding trust really at the fundamental level?
That's an excellent question. And I've actually had this conversation with Tom Ziegler. Now, Zig Ziglar, he was so extroverted and he was all out there for you and so everything. And Tom, his son, is such an analytical guy. In fact, he'll tell you face to face that he's a real nerd. He's a real geek. He loves to get into things. And he came up with this, that he thinks that the culture of a lack of trust is promoted by the personal, what people think is their personal truth, even if it contradicts the literal truth. Okay, he thinks that there's a major problem where we as individuals, it's our personal truth, but truth, real truth, cannot contradict itself. If something contradicts itself, it is not true. Okay, do you follow this?
I do.
A statement or an idea that contradicts itself is considered to be logically inconsistent. Two statements that contradict each other cannot both be true at the same time and in the same way. So when institutions, medical, educational, churches, when those institutions require us to accept something that is not true, and they say it's equal to what is true, then we can no longer trust that institution because truth cannot contradict itself. All right. So he's saying the whole problem here is personal truth. What have we heard? My reality is my perspective. Okay. So a lack of credible, effective communication is the major contributor to the decline of trust and to the increase of skepticism. All right. So to build trust in words and everything that is said, our words and our deeds must be congruent. There's got to be alignment to what we're saying. And that comes back to this word of integrity.
So you can't just talk the talk, you have to walk.
Walk the walk. I think that's what we say in Texas. Walk the walk, man. If you fall off that horse, get back on it. So communication without proper support through the behavior, you can say, but you got to have the action. That's why we say, be the right person by doing the right things and giving back. And then you can create your legacy. And this word legacy is so important because 150 years ago, from now, what are they going to be saying about the people that are saying and doing? Were they congruent? I have an excellent story about integrity. There was a fireman. He was going to take off a week or so. He had been working hard, working a lot of hours, lived in Denver. All right. And so he was going just drive out west. And he got out to state of Washington. And he saw smoke in the distance. And he said, oh my goodness, that's a fire. And so he went toward the fire. And it was coming. He could see it. And there was an elderly gentleman was outside. And he was digging a trench around his personal residence. And this fireman named Tom, he said, hey, that fire is going to be here in less than an hour. He said, give me that shovel. And the guy said, oh, I got to get this done. And he said, I will save your house for you. And for 26 hours, that fireman worked on that house, saved that house. And somebody had him on TV afterwards and said, why did you do that? Why? And he looked at him and said, I'm a fireman. Now that's integrity. And you can trust people like that. That's why the byproduct of integrity is trust. And see, one of our biggest problems now, creating all this skepticism, all this concern, all this distrust, is that our actions, we're not doing the right thing. Because if you do the right thing and live a life of integrity, you got trust. And if there's no trust, there must be no integrity, which to me, that sounds logical. But remember, on the Continental Airlines magazine that flew years ago before they merged with United, on the front page, the cover of their airline magazine was Kenneth Lay, CEO of Enron, and it said, a man of integrity. Because Ken Lay wanted to be the number one businessman in the country. That was his ego, and that's what he wanted. A purpose for you individually does not build the well-being of humankind. We've got to serve other people with what we say and what we do.
Look, I can't think of a better way to end this episode, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Yes, sir. Thanks again. I always love to come see you.
This is Tom Fox. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Circle of Gumption. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever great podcasts are listened to. The Circle of Gumption podcast is a production of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network.